Vivek Tyagi, the chairperson of India Semiconductor Association, and Abhay Bhutada, the MD of Poonawalla Fin. Rising India Summit all the way from Bengaluru, Chennai and other cities. Aman, of course, is a local. Aman, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Tarun. Thank you, everyone. As I said, this is made in India, which is very exciting because we are talking about products that we couldn't have envisioned even a decade ago. Because today, when you see people wearing headphones, they're wearing a boat or they're wearing some other Indian brand. It's not just about Sony or JBL anymore. So, Aman, take us about, through your own made in India journey. Or like you say on Shark Tank, hum bhi bana lenge.
That's my line. I was supposed to use it today.
Say it for us.
So, I would say that, a few years back, when we started 5 years back, there were no Indian brands as such in our space. And Indian brands were not, they were looked down upon, I would say. We were all, I would say, we felt great using Firangi brands. They were Japanese, they were Germans, there were American brands here. But people never thought that in our industry, Indian brands can still do something. And unfortunately, in the telecom side, Indian brands could not, do much when the Chinese came in. So people like us, brands like us, we were also looked down upon even before we started. I always say our death story was written before we were born. Brands can't do shit, right? And it was tough. We believed in ourselves. We believed in the changing Indian consumer, and we made a brand which was born in India, right? A few years back, we all know how COVID made us all realize that we cannot be dependent on a few countries for our products. And we all, not only us in electronics, all of us started, made in India started becoming a very flagship scheme of the government. And we all started investing our time, effort, and money in making in India. And we are very proud to say that, last quarter we made 1 crore units in India.
Wow.
So, going back to our line, when people say you can't do it, there is an inner confidence which says, hum bhi bana lenge.
In fact, I read somewhere, Aman, that in 2021, only 5% of your products were being made here, but now it's climbed to 40-50%?
Yeah, so it was, it was not easy to make in India. It was not feasible, to be frank to you. But, we were working very closely with the government also helping us on a lot of schemes. The PMP scheme is there. The PLI is also expected sometime. So I think there was a constant push and pull, and with the support of the government, with the policies becoming easier, we also thought we are not a manufacturing company. We never done manufacturing ever. We know tech, we know marketing, but manufacturing was something which we had to learn. And imagine that in India there was no factory which had made audio products, because it was not something which was or a wearable product. It was not made in India. Nobody knew how to do it. So we took baby steps. And I remember one day, there was one of these interviews where people asked Prime Minister Modi that why aren't we doing things fast or something. And he said, India is not like a flight which just goes like this and this. India is like a train. It takes time, right? So I would say for us also, like Rome was not built in a day. India will not make in a day. It will take its time. And we are on the path of doing that.
Great. Tarun, your journey as a maker of electric vehicle, an electric scooter, since the time you started, which was 2014, 2015, there are now over 1 lakh Ather scooters on the road in India. But it took you a long time to get there. I think you took 6-7 years just to get the design right, to get the product right, because you wanted to make a product that ultimately looked good. Like Aman said, people would kind of hesitate from using Indian brands, but you made it aspirational.
So if you see our trajectory, it's By the way, we're in our 10th year now, so just approaching the first decade. First 5 years of engineering and product development. That phase was important because before you get to actually make in India, you need designed in India. Or rather, for us, that was the only option. We couldn't get a design out of somewhere else because electric two-wheelers are a very fascinating place where globally there is no country with an evolved enough ecosystem of good electric scooters or motorbikes. Like none. China has a lot of them. They are all crap. Like they're all really crap by our standards. Indian standards, none of those vehicles make any sense. So we were at a very interesting place where if you want to build electric two-wheelers, you literally have no place to like borrow from. So we had to build the platforms from scratch. We had to do all the engineering from scratch. I remember when we hired this testing lead from one of the legacy auto OEMs. He's like, we have no test protocols that work for an electric vehicle. And our team started writing the first protocols, to my knowledge, for scooters in India, electric scooters in India. And they had to write 2,000 of them. Like we conduct 2,000 tests per vehicle every time we move them to production.
So 2,000 tests per vehicle?
Yeah.
When you would conduct, what, 400 tests for a normal petrol vehicle?
Some small number versus some very large number, basically, yes. So there was a lot of fundamental building required. And our bet was that you have to have a fantastic product for the customer to flip them, but you also need incredibly strong platforms. You need IP. So we had, and this was not typical startup journey. So our journey was difficult because unlike typical startups where you have the concept of minimal viable product, you have this entire theory of get to market fast, fail fast. Think about Ather's journey. First 5 years, 0 revenue, 0 customers, 350 engineers doing product development, nothing to show for it except prototypes.
So did your parents ask you, Tarun, what are you doing with an
They
IIT
still ask
degree?
me. They still ask me, what are those engineers doing? Like, abhi bhi, nobody believes it, that you need people to actually build. They still keep checking. So then in 18, we launched, and then the real hard work began. So we launched a product, good reviews, and we realized there's no local ecosystem. So we can't scale up supplies. So we had to spend the next 2-3 years building a lot of our suppliers along with us. Some on electronics, but a lot of them on things like even traditional auto guys who are not doing stuff for electric. There's a lot of supply chain buildup required across the spectrum. There's a lot of convincing required because Indian OEMs would not even get supply. If you want to get lithium-ion cells, until a couple of years back, it was ridiculously hard to even get lithium-ion cells from external suppliers to Indian market. They're like, India market is not important. Nobody will build and sell EV in India. Why would we sell to? They would not even have offices in India. So it was a pretty fascinating journey. And in this 10 years, the revenue, 90% of our revenue has come in the last year.
Wow.
So 10 years ka cumulative revenue, all of it has come basically in the last year. It's 9 years of build-up and just 1 year worth of actual proof that's finally come out in the
some level of patience.
Yeah.
So, you know, at least Aman is making audio products and smartwatches. Tarun is making vehicles. But Srinath wants to make rockets. And before I let you talk, I have to ask you, have you seen Rocket Boys?
Yeah, very much.
Size is increasing as we are going down the road.
The scale and scope is just going up. We'll finally come to the man who has all the money, Abhay. But Srinath, rockets, were you inspired by Homi Baba, Vikram Sarabhai, or Elon Musk?
All of them, but actually my first inspiration comes from, I think we didn't have cable TV at home when I was growing up for a very long time. So only Doordarshan, and PSLV launches used to come on Doordarshan, right? And my granddad used to be in Doordarshan. So I ended up watching them not by choice, but then I grew up as like every kid has this fascination for space, right? So somehow that was there. And yeah, I think it took me a while to realize that I can take the steps to go ahead and build something like that or try to build something like that in India because it took me into electrical engineering, then financial engineering, and then back to aeronautical engineering. Did a lot of things before I figured that there is a business model as well that is possible, right? And for that, a lot of credit goes to SpaceX because they proved that you can actually make commercial products out of space. But when I was in the US, I also realized that there's a lot of respect for the tech that ISRO has developed. So that is actually one slight difference between what we just heard right from Aman and Tarun as well. At least in the space sector, India is not by definition like a bad product builder. You already have credibility at that level. Now your onus is about, okay, now that ISRO has already done all that, where can we take it from here? We are actually having the opportunity to stand on the shoulders of giants, right? So from here, where can we take it?
And
so
I think the government gave you a helping hand by opening up the private sector. So ISRO, in a sense, is actually helping you.
Yes, definitely. I think in 2020, during the Atmanirbhar reforms announcement, so we were all at home. I mean, like most of us, I think I was also at home watching, I think the finance minister talking about it, right? Like she was like actually coming out with slide after slide of what are the reforms coming. And then the very last slide was about space tech. This completely took us all by surprise. And I think that actually translated to reality last year in June when the Prime Minister himself came down to inaugurate in space in Ahmedabad, right? And it is with their help that we have done our engine testing at ISRO. We have opened our launch pad within Sriharikota. So all of those things, at least for space tech, you do need that government support directly. And I think the government has opened it up in a big way.
So when can we expect a 3D printed rocket from Agnikul Cosmos launch into space?
Yeah, I think hopefully in the next 30 to 45 days. We actually wanted to do a launch by end of last year. Thank you. But it's a very new launch in the sense, new launch pad, new engine, new vehicle, and a whole bunch of new avionics. So like what Tarun said, a lot of design in India going inside that. So we want to take our time to get it right. Hopefully in the next 30 to 45 days,
I'm sure we'll all be cheering him on to see the first 3D printed rocket go up there. But Mr. Tyagi, all of these innovations depend on one raw material, which is your chip, semiconductor chip. And there, unfortunately, despite a PLI scheme being launched many months ago, India hasn't been able to make headway. We still don't have a big investor coming on ground. Of course, there are proposals, agreements, etc. Why do you think we are falling behind when it comes to building fab plants or, semiconductor chip facilities? Why is there this inertia?
Chandra, before coming there, just wanted to put some context and perspective to electronics and semiconductor in India. So if you look at last year's import data for India, oil being #1 item historically has been #1. Gold has been historically #2 import item for India. But last year, electronics import over to gold imports in India last year. So that brings us to the point that how Atmanirbharta in this field is important. Now, semiconductors, you just heard the story of, ether engineering for 7 years or rocket engineering for longer time. So designing and building semiconductors is also equally hard, if not less or more, because you require large working capital for long period of time. The perfecting a design of a complex chip takes 4 to 5 years. Then fabricating it, then bring it out, software associated with it. So what I'm trying to come to is it's a much longer cycle time to design and build a chip successfully. If you look at some of the other countries successfully doing it like US or Taiwan or Japan or Korea, they have been at it for last 40 to 50 years. And we just talking about launching a, incentive scheme to manufacture chip here in just 1 year. So we have to have patience like these entrepreneurs had to build their business. I can assure you, I just recollect the dialogue of Amitabh from b.v.r where he says, "Mere paas maa hai." Taking cue from that, "Hamare paas maa matlab market hai." When there is a market, then obviously the investment in the chip and everything will come. We just have to have a little more patience because companies that are building semiconductor chips, they have usually 5-year plans of investment into the fabs, test and assembly, etc. So these are not going to be quick and easy decisions for anyone to come. But we believe that in next couple of months, we should hear the first announcement in semiconductor manufacturing in India.
Right. You spoke about patience and market. But what about subsidy? I mean, 10 billion subsidy by India is great. But contrast that to US. I think US is what, 63 billion chip subsidy.
Yeah.
China's talking about 143 billion.
Yeah.
So is this too little, too late?
No. Let me put again in context. So semiconductor chips are made at different, geometries or nodes or different technology nodes. And every application in the world doesn't need the cutting edge technology. So if you're building a server or a computer or a cell phone, you need a very cutting edge chip. And that chip, if you have to build a factory, it might require $20 billion. But if you're building electric vehicles, like Tarun is doing, automotive usually needs chip at different geometry levels. That investment is not that large. So $10 billion is a good enough money to start with for someone, right? Central government is putting 50% subsidy upfront on the table if somebody comes to manufacture it forward. And then state governments are willing to add another 10, 20, 25% on top of it. So this is one of the best known incentive scheme for semiconductor manufacturing. It's it's a good time to start. I would say this is a Y2K moment for semiconductor manufacturing in India. So let's stay tuned and let's stay patient. It should happen.
Okay. Abhay, you're the man with the purse strings. So, how tough is it to fund companies in the deep tech space? Because Tarun, for 9 years, he would have told you, I have zero revenues. And Aman said, we were considered dead before even we started. And Srinath, again, has a moonshot target in mind. So is this something that traditional NBFCs will look at? Or is that why we need risk capital or venture capital in this space? Or is there a mindset shift happening now?
So basically, post-COVID, we have come out with a different skill set. If you see all the lenders, they are looking for some innovation. They are open, they are exploring new opportunities. And market has moved to a cash flow-based lending rather than just seeing at a ITR and so many other things. If you look at startups also, they are paying all the statutory dues on time. They have the PDF banking statement. There are so many other data points, digital footprints are available. On the basis of that, I think we are able to take a call and we are able to fund these kind of companies. But of course, yes, for a lot of private banks and few other banks, they require a lot of other things, vintage and so many other things. But a lot of traditional NBFCs, now they have moved to a fintech kind of model, wherein they focus on a cash flow based lending and they're able to provide working capital limit and that too without collateral up to a certain limit.
And do you see many MSMEs emerging in these areas that will perhaps work in the electronic space, the wearable space, the EV space, and so on?
Yeah, so lot of MSMEs which we are targeting, I think they come from different sectors. So there is no sector specific as such. It's all about the innovation, counterparty, take call on promoters, and so many other parameters. So there is no specific criteria right now in terms of lending. The only cash flow is one part. There are so many other factors which every lender will look into it.
Right. Aman, when Tarun was talking, he spoke about how not just make in India, but also design in India. What kind of, designs shift did you have to make or design changes did you have to make an Indian brand attractive? Because today when people talk about the audio space, they say, boAt is competing with a Noise or a maybe which are also Indian brands. It's not just a Sony or a JBL. What kind of shift did that take? How did you manage to make cool designs that youngsters would like?
First, we should have an active noise cancellation headphone. So design is very critical, right? So when we started off, our company was incorporated in 2015, but our products were launched somewhere in 2017. It took us 2 years. Our differentiation also was, if you look at the Indian, when we were doing audio, India likes bass. Always say, there's a Salman Khan ka gana nahi hai, baby ko bass pasand hai, right? And that is very true to India. India loves bass. So imagine a product being made for India, which has to cater to the Indian ear. An Indian ear, if you look at our music also, we like drums, right? We like dhol. If you look at the Bollywood music also today, it's all about Bhangra and Punjabi music, which is becoming famous. If you look at the children at that time, they were looking at EDM. Youngsters were looking at EDM as as a music genre. So for us, we had to ensure that the sound, the design is made such that the bass is much harder than a normal earphone which is available. So we made, we spent 2 years in that. Now if you look at in India, we've, there is, Meiti has started a, they've invested with ICAI on design innovation lab, and we are a partner there. So India में design बनाने शुरू कर रहे हैं, मतलब Indian designs, India में design houses भी नहीं है, if you ask me. It is all getting developed as we speak, right? Slowly, like sir said कि अभी भी बहुत सारी चीजें हमें बाहर से लेनी पड़ती हैं. India will start developing everything slowly. Even designs have started to emerge, like this watch which we made. It is a complete design in India. We just acquired a company out of Singapore. It was called Kaha Technologies. We've made all their, it's a 300, 400 crore buy for us. And all the engineers are now based out of Bangalore. And all this is being designed in India. Because, if you don't do design in India and if you still do assembly in India, slowly that will get over and you will be more expensive. So now like for brands like us, it was brand in India, then made in India, and now made in India for the world. And for that, we'll have to have a design center in India.
So ye made in India for the world, when is that going to happen? What kind of export markets are you looking at?
So if you look at us now, right now we are so, we are not able to even fulfill the demand in India. So abhi hamara, if you are able to service India, that's 1/6 of humanity in the world, right? So we are now the second largest wearable brand in the world after Apple. Right? I always used to say A for Apple, B for boat. So we are now the second largest, only selling in India, right? And so India में इतनी opportunity खुद यहाँ पे है. अभी wearable में, घड़ियों में इतना market growth हो रही है. अभी हमारे पास ना, we don't have time, we don't have money, and we don't have the focus to go outside India for now. Let's serve the Indian market well. And it's sometimes entrepreneurs want to do everything very quickly, and and maybe we say that we'll be entering this market or that very soon. I think we want, as our company, we like to stay profitable. We like to do things aram se, and we would like to first make products for India as a market. We have not even captured that. If you look at offline market, it's growing like crazy. 90% of India still shops offline. We've not even reached there. Our business is primarily online. So offline is also growing. So abhi hame India mein kuch kar le, aur fir dheere dheere we'll look at international probably by next year.
Great. Tarun, if I look at you, you kind of engineer and manufacture the battery management system here. You put the battery packs together here, but you still import cells. So when can we expect cell manufacturing to take off in India for electric vehicles? In fact, I think Ola is already talking about that. But will we see Ather also setting up a plant to manufacture cells in the near future?
So cells are a very interesting product. They are a very high-end product. They are very complex, but they're a little bit of a commodity as far as the business goes. It's one of those rare things that's actually a very high-end product sold almost as a commodity. Would we get into it? We right now stayed out of it. I think, as I said, the first part, they are darn hard to manufacture. So it's a different business. It's a different operations. So our current preference is to find partners and join hands as opposed to run our own production for it, because just the scooter alone occupies 100% of the day.
With
now,
4,000 tests or 2,000?
Yeah, 2,000. So, but will we produce cells in India? Oh, 100%, inevitable. Almost every projection right now will tell you India is headed towards about 1.5 to 2 crore electric two-wheelers per annum by the end of this decade. Right? It's a phenomenally large number. 2 crore electric two-wheelers will require roughly about 100 gigawatt hour of lithium-ion cells. To put that in context, that's more than double of the world's global production of lithium-ion cell a couple of years back. So it's a very large number. At that scale, you just can't even import. You can't even import that number of cells. You will need domestic production. And I think there's enough economic rationale for large money to come here. the thing with lithium-ion cells is it requires massive investment. It's a very capex-heavy business. Your minimum ticket size, realistically, is north of a few thousand crores. And a capacity of 100 gigawatt hours is going to take, it's going to be an industry as large as the semiconductor one that we're talking about. It's going to be comparable size. And there is a market that's starting to grow very, very rapidly in India. So I think it's almost inevitable cells will be made in India. I think we have the ability to drive access to a lot of materials, given our diplomacy. I think we have a massive local market. What we're missing is production today, but it's a matter of 3 to 5 years. I think we're going to see massive, we're going to see lots of gigafactories.
Right. Srinath, very quickly, compared to other sectors, is the space tech sector more Atmanirbhar? Because, I think it's also clubbed with defense, so it's a sensitive category in that sense. To what extent do you rely on imports? To what extent are things made locally here?
Yeah, I think traditionally as well, we've always been a little more self-reliant in space tech compared to any other general sector, if you think about it, because of the defense overlap, I would say. Right? However, today that is, even with this new Atmanirbhar thing, that's getting even more of a focus. For Agnikul itself, for our vehicles, more than 95% of the stuff, be electronics or be it, materials or manufacturing, all of those things are available well within India. A few sensors, you may still have to go outside. We do go outside for that. But I do see a lot of people actually wanting to set up shop for that in India. So I think compared to a consumer tech, probably this kind of stuff would get fully self-reliant even sooner. Just because of the nature of the business, because of the nature of the demand itself.
Right. Mr. Tyagi, a few months ago, there was this story about how a large reserves of lithium was found in Kashmir. Does that give you hope in terms of, sourcing raw material in India going forward?
That's more related to battery. I think it's just a find right now. The details of, how efficiently it can be mined and then converted into battery, those details are yet to come out. As far as semiconductor is concerned, there is no challenge of raw material as such. It's only a matter of time and money, what you put in to get the output out. But more than semiconductor, what I feel is that since as a market we consume a lot of electronics, whether it's consumer or automotive or rockets or other things, telecommunication equipment, I think first step for the country is to design and manufacture that electronic equipment in-house, in India, right? Once you design and start buying raw material like semiconductor chips, then automatically the global companies will start paying much more attention to semiconductors for this market, whether it's design, manufacturing, and support of that. But if the end equipment is getting imported from outside, then nobody is going to pay attention to manufacture chips here. So the self-reliance have to first start from designing and manufacturing electronics, and then it comes as a second step to semiconductor. In that context, definitely, I think we all have to be very proud of these entrepreneurs which are designing and manufacturing products in the country. So I think really salute to all these entrepreneurs too for doing that.
No doubt about that. We have 1.5 minutes to go, so I'm going to quickly ask all of you for one big prediction or trend that you see when it comes to Make in India. Abhay, I'm going to ask you to go first. Your one big prediction.
So I think 2023 second half will see a lot of consolidation. Market will move towards productivity.
Vivek?
I'm looking at semiconductor as more than business, but also a strategic geopolitical asset.
Correct.
If you look back last 1 year's happenings of China threatening Taiwan or US supporting Taiwan, one big reason is 50% of the semiconductor chips are manufactured out of Taiwan. So I think we have to look this as a strategic sector for our country's geopolitical strength going forward.
Srinath?
I think the message outside of India would also be that even within India, real deep tech can be designed and built, not only in the industry B2B side, but also on the B2C side.
Tarun?
Manufacturing grows as a percentage of GDP pretty radically over the next 5 years, driven by a lot of high-tech manufacturing. I think jobs will happen, but I think overall value add will grow much faster than just jobs.
Yeah. Interesting. Aman, I'm going to let you have the last word.
So, you know, they used to say India is a software country and hardware was made somewhere else. And when with Make in India, I think agar humne India mein hardware or software ka combination bana diya, so we are here to rule the world.
Hardware plus software is going to make India invincible. Thank you very much. Great thoughts from all of you. Thank you very much.
Big round of applause. So make hardware in India. So that's the hard part. And you all talked about monies. I hope you were listening up it. Well, big round of applause. And Chandra, I'm going to request you to please present all of them with a memento here at the News 18 Rising India. You'll have to make